Ready. Okay. 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Are we start now? Yeah. Okay. Welcome to the webinar of Fortification and Military Heritage, Promote Conservation and Management, Plan from World Heritage Perspective. I'm Wang Chenxi, Associate Professor in National Taipei University. Fortification and military heritage is a special type of cultural heritage. Taiwan is an island. Nation has experienced many wars in its history. Many fortification and military heritage left in Taiwan, which reflect and recall of different historic periods. Besides, some of the military heritage has specific technology of construction, advanced idea, and defense systems. ICOFORT, International Committee on Fortification and Military Heritage, is an international scientific committee of professions whose research concern about historic fortification sites and also military heritage in a broader sense. The work of ICOFORT not only focuses on the forts, castles of several hundred years ago, but also the military site even by the end of Cold War of 20th century. However, the conservation and the adaptive reuse of this military heritage is a critical issue. It may face several issues, such as challenges of restoration and authenticity, the conflict of preservation and adaptive reuse of the site, even the problem of the national identity and the conflict memories. ICOFORT has been working hard on the different issues, covering several issues mentioned above. Today we have 3 speakers. First speaker is Ms. Milagros Flores Roman, comes from Puerto Rico. Ms. Milagros is PhD in history, Complutense University at Madrid, Spain. She used to work in United Nations National Park Service, Southeast Regional Office as regional historian. In 2008 to 2019, she is the president of ICOFORT. Since 2019, she's the ICOFORT Regional Subcommittee Coordinator for Latin America and the Caribbean region. Welcome, Mr. Milagros. Our second speaker is Mr. Zheng Yiren from Kinmen, Taiwan. Professor Zheng is PhD of Architecture, National Cheng Kung University, Tainan, Taiwan. He is also my colleague. He is now Associate Professor of National Kuen Mo University in Kinmen. He is the Director of a Military Site and the Minnan Architecture Research Center. Since Kinmen is the front line of Free China and the Communist China during the Cold War time, Professor Zheng worked on identification, protection, conservation of military heritage, especially under the scope of the Cultural Heritage Preservation Act. So, do we have the? It's okay. Yeah. So welcome, Professor Zheng. Say hello to everybody. Our third speaker is Ms. Maria Paulina Kaplan de Polo. She is the architect based in Chile. She studied in the doctoral program in architecture Gaudi Chair, Polytechnic University of Catalonia, Barcelona, Spain. Founding member of TICI, Chile. The TICI is Industrial Heritage Scientific Committee. She's now working in Pontifical Catholic University of Valparaiso, School of the Construction Engineering. She is the director of the Chair of the Restoration and the Conservation of Heritage Structure, member of ICOMOS Chile Board of Directors. She is also member ICOFORT. Now she is the General Secretary of ICOFORT. Welcome, Paulina. Yeah, before we start our speech, we need to take the group photo. So let's our staff to take group photo of the webinar. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you our staff to already take our photo, group photo. And now we move to speech topic. Our first speech is by Ms. Milagros. The topic is to know what we have, to protect what we know. ICOFORT Inventory of Fortification and the Military Heritage. In this speech, I think there are two topics. One is inventory, and the second is protection under the threat of climate change. Milagros, you have the floor. You need to open the microphone. Thank you.
Sorry for that. First, I would like to thank the Asian Network of Industrial Heritage, ANI, and also the Bureau of Cultural Heritage, Ministry of Culture of Taiwan, as well Professor Wang and Professor Sen for this kind invitation to participate in this webinar. So the subject I'm going to be talking about today, it's called, put this lower, to know what we have, to protect what we know. And it's about the project of ICOFORT on the inventory of fortifications and military heritage. Okay, if you go into the website of ICOFORT, this is what you're gonna see. And if you scroll down here, it's already all the information about the ICOFORT Monumental Inventory on Fortifications. So if we go more in deep, the inventory is divided according to the regions of ICOFORT, which also they are the same regions as UNESCO and ICOMOS. And in this case, at the end, I'm gonna present an example that refers to the region where it is my area of performance in ICOFORT, Latin America, and the Caribbean. So going into the project, this project started really in 2020. And so this is the third year that ICOFORT has released a call for contributions to the project. The call is extended to all the regions according to the ICOFORT committee already mentioned. And the purpose, the objective is to identify monuments that need further documentary and archaeological research for their enhancement, to document the effects, also to document the effects of climate change on fortifications and military heritage, for which a list of possible effects or indicators have been prepared, although they are not exhaustive. Potential indicative effects may be applicable to structures, landscape, social and cultural impact on fortifications for the purpose of greater understanding and action regarding both loss and damages, as well as identifying the level of impact and also possible mitigation measures. Also, monuments or sites without any heritage value declaration or protection, they will be welcome into the project of inventory. And also monuments or sites that already have been has declarations either at the level of World Heritage sites or national declarations of historic value or in community interest, may be also registered in the project. We are now have for this year, 2023, we have a due date of November 30th of this year, but it's a long-term project, so it is expected that it will continue till 2024. The inventory has two parts. The first part is all about identification of the site or the monument, the fortification or the military structure, with all the basic information that will allow us to identify, to understand what are we talking about, what kind of fortification do we have. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel with this part one of the inventory, but we are trying to capture as much information as possible, because at the end that information is what going to allow us to a best interpretation of the monument. So we're talking about to identify which region is located, under which names it's recognized. Sometimes a monument changes the name through times. Which typology we're talking about, if it's a fortress, a castle, a tower, an observation post, or is it an archaeological site? If it has combination of cultural and natural, talking about the landscape, and all the declarations, like I said, that it may have, if it's part of a system, a fortification system, if it's part of a cultural itinerary, a cultural route, the complexity of the structure we're talking about, is one structure or is a serious site of different structures. So it's basic information that we probably will have seen in other types of inventory. Of course, the historic value and cultural value of the site that we're talking about, if it's universal or it's regional or local value. If it has other elements, historic elements on the site, like artillery or work of arts, or has a museum with historic objects that belong to the site, or were part of a archaeological investigation on the site. Also the state of conservation, if it's a structure that it's actually open to the public as a museum or as a recreational area, or we're talking about a structure that is completely abandoned and has not been, has no protection or conservation. And also we can identify if there has been intervened before, restored, there's been conservation work done, and any kinds of types of modification has been done through the years. The location, obviously, as many as images as we can get, location, elevation, construction plans, photograph, documents, previous research that has been done before, not only historic research, but also archaeological research, as many as bibliography that we can compile about the structure, the fortification or the military site. Also about the surrounding, we cannot detach a fortification from its landscape, from its surrounding, because one depends on the other. So also the landscape, the military landscape or the fortified landscape is as important as well to be documented. And if the case that if the fortification or the military site is open to the public, well, we would like to know about the interpretive um, interpretation that is going on the site. What are the opening hours? Um, what type of interpretation is offered to the visitors? If there's a museum, if there's educational programs, is there tours, guided tours, or mechanical tours? Is there exhibits that interpret the story of the site? Um, and if there's school groups also being invited to the sites to participate. And of course, then the information of the person or the organization that is preparing um, the inventory form. Then there has a second part, a second component that is as important as well as the first one. And this second component is related to climate change. In 2007, the ICOMOS took the initiative to develop what was called and is still called the Climate Change and Heritage Working Group. In this group, I had the honor to be part of it. We started working under three work streams. The first one was to develop and to coordinate ICOMOS inputs into the update of the 2007 World Heritage Committee policy documents of the impact of climate change on World Heritage properties. We also were responsible for coordinating the drafting of a new ICOMOS charter on climate change and heritage. And also the third one, we were also in charge of develop a draft global climate change organizational engagement program for ICOMOS. This was done, and in 2019, in July of 2019, 28 members from 19 countries, we presented at the World Heritage Committee meeting in Baku, Azerbaijan, the report that was called The Future of Our Past. And from that, in this report, just for you to know, it's available to download at the ICOMOS site. So from that report from 2009, The Future of Our Past, we refer when we present in the second part of the inventory related to climate change impact indicators in fortifications and military heritage, we refer to the indicators that were identified during the process of developing this report. And the indicators are related to, are divided into indicators for structures and indicators for landscape and indicators for social and culture. So when it comes to indicators for impact of climate change into structures, just to mention some of them, and like I said at the beginning, they're not exhaustive. We understand that other indicators may apply to other regions that we did not cover into the report. So all of them are welcome. But for example, we mentioned coastal erosion, destabilization of buildings, increase of moisture, stone erosion, expansion and cracking of construction materials, increase of destructive organism at warm temperatures, for example, in tropical regions, like example in the Caribbean and also in Asia, accelerated decomposition of masonry and mortar due to increase of wetting and drying extremes, degradation of stonework, increase of damage caused by an increase of wind. In the case of the Caribbean, for example, during the season of hurricanes and storms, abrasion of the outer surface, increased crack, landslides due to flooding, building wear and tear due to accelerated drying, and damage caused by debris caused by the wind, and also related impacts related to fortified landscape. Well, we mentioned some like coastal erosion, change in the use of or abandon due to changes in access pattern. For example, when we suffer a hurricane or there's a flash flooding, the access to that fortification has to be modified and move, or sometimes even close to the public at all until repairs can take place. It happens a lot. Changes in the infrastructure due to changes in access road, and changes in the historic topography when we have a total slide that changes the topography, and we have to change the entire configuration, how to access in the site from on. Also, social and cultural indicators of impact, like change in seasonality, phenology causing changes in the infrastructure, change to the high season of visitors, alterations in the patterns of visitors, including the increase of pressure of the visitors and the carbon prints. One phenomenon that happens when a site is, for example, is declared World Heritage Site, we know that the visitation increases, sometimes it doubles or it triplicates, starting as soon as it's declared a World Heritage Site. So that causes a change in seasonality and visitation, because the site then has to face a modification of the visitors' pattern to the structure. And sometimes, to mention one example, for example, on Machu Picchu, the visitations, ever since it was declared a World Heritage Site, the visitation has triplicated. So they have been forced to change many, many times their pattern of visitation. Years ago, you used to be allowed to entrance and stay for the entire day. Now now the time you can stay in the site is limited. Also, loss of historic character of the structure or its landscape due to changes in configuration for tourism, when sites have to build additional facilities for like interpreter centers or space for as parking or for tourism buses, that changes the configuration and the landscaping, of course, of the site. And also loss of aesthetics of the structure or its landscape due to changes in configuration of tourism. So we see that the social and the cultural aspect that we can summarize in the impact of tourism also is understood also as an impact to the structure. So, for example, I want to bring here is an example that is in my region, and it's a sample of a World Heritage Site, the San Juan National Historic Site, that we can see here, aerial view. This is the inlet of Old San Juan, and this is the historic center of Old San Juan in Puerto Rico. It's in the two main forts. Here we're seeing the Castle San Cristobal and Castle San Felipe del Morro. And we can see the entire historic district surrounded by city walls with all their bastions. And one detail that I wanted to mention is that only the fortifications, the two castles, and the city walls, and another small fort that's here, the other side of the bay, are declared World Heritage Site. The historic district of Old San Juan is not part of the World Heritage Site. So you can see it's an inlet, so we are totally surrounded by ocean. And the north side, this is the Atlantic Ocean, while this is the Bay of Old San Juan. The major impact is always going to come from the north side because it's exposed to the high rays of the ocean in Atlantic Ocean. We have another view here of the inlet where we can see more clear. This is the inlet of San Juan, where the San Juan National Historic Site, which is a U.S. national park, it's located. And the inlet is connected to the island, the major island of Puerto Rico. This is the island of Puerto Rico by two small bridges, one here and one here. So we have here in this small geographical location, very condensed amount of historic fortifications all in the inlet of San Juan. This is a stage how it is today. It's a mostly recent photos. And you can notice here that this is a shoreline trail that was started to construction in the late 1990s. And it was a mitigation, was a result of the mitigation decision that it was taken in order to protect the World Heritage Site of the Castle San Felipe del Morro, which right here, before this short trail was built, there was a underwater, huge cave already was threatening to cause all this section here, the west section of the fort, to cave in into the ocean. So together the National Park Service, together with the local government of Puerto Rico and with the U.S. Corps of Engineers, decided that it was very much needed to build a shoreline trail, but also to place all this rock barrier along to protect from the ocean rise and very strong impact of the wave hitting constantly day and night the foundation of the fort. So this is for an example of a project and mitigation that it was due in the Caribbean as a result of studies, a result of inventory and identification of what was the problem, the climate change problem that it was affecting this World Heritage Site. Today, we have an entire shoreline that protects the historic city walls that are part of the World Heritage Site and covers all the way to the main fort. And here more in detail aspects of the protection that it was taken in order to protect this World Heritage Site. And this is exactly what it will be happening today if this would have not taken. This view is not from San Juan Fortification, but is from the castle of Los Tres Reyes in the city of Havana in the island of Cuba. So final remark is that through this inventory of fortifications and military heritage, ICOFORT makes a call to join efforts to create support networks towards the protection of fortified heritage, because by knowing what we have, we can better protect what we know. Contributions are welcome. Each contribution is like a chapter in which the contribution of each author will be honored through due credit, whether they're from an individual person, a team, or organization. We look forward to your participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Milagros. Yes, and the hurricane is very dangerous, I think, for the islands and our fort. My question will be later. Yeah. So now we move to our second speech. Our second speech is by Professor Zheng Yiren. The topic is current status and the future development of military heritage conservation in Taiwan. In this speech, there are also two topics. The first is the current status of military heritage in Taiwan, especially I think from the statistic point of view. The second is the conservation and the conservation structure, new interpretation idea of military heritage in Taiwan. And Professor Zheng will speak in Chinese. So 曾老师 it's your 你可以开始了。
好 ，OK， 好，各位线上的朋友，大家好，我是曾义仁，我今天讲的题目是台湾军事遗产维护的现况，以及未来的发展，这是我今天简报的几个大纲那我会从台湾的军事文化资产的现况以及目前所进行的几个案例跟各位来说明好，首先我们要提的是，防御工事，是为了人类的自卫安全又利用各种的工法来建造所以它呈现了那个时候的新建时期的这些技术跟防卫的一些思想当然反映不同时期的政治权力跟社会的特性台湾在这种很特殊的地理环境之下具有战略要地。所以自17世纪以来，那整个岛屿的防御跟航海的安全的因素所以建造了很多的防御工事到现在为止还可以看到很多的军事遗产。不过呢，因为大家对于防御工事的系统性的特质不是那么了解而且呢过去我们对于相关的基础的研究跟调查比较不够所以它的特性常常会被外界误解那我们要知道防御工事是一个非典型的建筑那当它失去原有设计的功能，也就是说现在这个时候呢，它已经不是原来那种功能的时候。所以我们要保护它的方法，那就应该要跟一般的遗产的做法是不太一样那这样才能够面对未来的各种挑战好，从台湾来看台湾我们大致上可以分为4个时期的这样一个遗产的一个类型状况那第一个是荷兰统治时期那目前留下在台湾的这些荷兰时期所留下来，就包含像遗址像这个早期的这种城的一个遗址城堡遗址不管是在澎湖或者在台南的热兰遮城都是在17世纪初期到中叶所遗留下来的遗址那当然是目前是以遗址的状况来保存来展示好，其次是在清朝的时候呢，大概在17世纪的末到19世纪末，这大概200年的时间那在台湾留下了像各个地方的城门包含像离岛澎湖的城门这样城墙，当然留下一些防御性的一些炮台措施当时跟西方的这个帝国主义的这些及贸易的入侵在东亚是有关所以当时又建立了这些的一个城墙那在日据时期在1895年之后到1945年，大概50年时间由日本人统治那日本人当然就利用了比较先进的一些工法特别是钢筋混凝土的技术那目前留下来在各地的数量蛮多的那比方说留下的机堡，或者是我们所看到在很多的机场或重要的军事基地旁所留下的机枪堡，甚至这些弹药库这是留下的数量是相当的多那当然也包含2战末期很特殊的正洋艇那当然是呢目前在台湾留下非常多的在日据时期所留下的一些军人的宿舍这是目前 台湾在保存的遗产数量上最多的一类哈。好，接下来是在冷战时期哈。那冷战时期在1945年之后，也就是在战争2次大战之后，那台湾因为跟中国大陆之间比较紧张的关系所以也留下非常多的近代的军事遗产特别是金门、马祖这2个地区我们所看到的在中国大陆沿海那目前留下的这些包含数量相当庞大的，像不管是炮堡或者是坑道，或者这些有关于反登陆的这装置，甚至留下了非常密集的海岸的防御据点很多的反空降的一些设施。那当然除了非军事用途之外的一些相关的像精神标语或者一些相关的设施也都保留下来，这数量非常庞大。那如果依照目前台湾在依法令所登录的古迹、历史建筑等等的话，目前一共是2881项到10月底为止。那经过我们初步的调查，大概有关军事遗产部分大概有220处占了7%那如果依据不同的时期来分类，我们可以看到220处里面占的数量最高的是日治时期也就是日本人所留下来的，目前依法指定登录为文化资产的占的大概是46%其次是这个战后的这个数量也相当的庞大大概好。那另外就是如果依照它类型来看那台湾因为不同的遗产的类型来做保护那里面数量最多目前是历史建筑，我们看到历史建筑大概占了54%那其次是一般的古迹那另外是指定为国家级的古迹占了12%。那这些国家级古迹很多就是刚才提到的荷兰时期或者是清代这些城堡以及炮堡这些那是年代比较久远所以当时在这个保护状况比较好之下留下的数量比较多。好，那当然除了刚才讲这类型之外那近年来我们针对军事遗产的跟文化景观类的类型来看的话，那目前以金门的大胆2胆的战地文化景观是全区的登录保存。那另外就是马祖它有4乡5岛整个连江县都纳为战地文化景观保存我想这个是在战后冷战时期留下比较多的2个区域用这样子的类型来进行保存。那我们回头看目前整个台湾的军事遗产的保存状况，那我们可以看到大概在荷兰时期跟清代呢，主要还是以静态的单体的保存，比方说这种城堡或者是炮台都是单体的保存那目前这些都是国家级的古迹。那在日据时期，当然也是以这个单项的保存为主不过以类型来看我们留下比较多的像炮台、坑道、壕沟、碉堡等等，一共有在33项，占了那个时期大概是1/3左右当然跟军事不是直接相关的，像宿舍类或者是军人的这些相关的设施大概有17项那多数留存下来就会再利用，免为现在还在持续的使用中那战后呢以及冷战时期刚才提到主要是金门、马祖2地所留下的数量比较多刚才提到2个区域都以战地文化景观来进行保存特别是马祖不过呢，在1992年解除了战地政务，也就是解除戒严之后呢，那军人大量的裁撤，那因此在曾经有这么大量的军事的这些构工，就受到因为土地开发压力之下，就会很多的变拆除那这也是目前金门、马祖2地遇到非常大的开发压力下的一个状况。好，那因此从这样来看。我们对于军事遗产的类型跟它的意义那过去我们看到 我们是针对单体来保存，像清代的炮堡或者是日据时期的单一的这样的机枪堡，都是以单体来保存并不是太理解这个防御在整个系统上的一些概念我想过去的想法是比较单纯的，以静态的保存为主所以如果我们参考ICOMOS 的防御公式和军事遗产准则里面其实在这里面很多的内容都特别的强调那防御公式是以各种的方式融入周围的文化景观文化景观跟他们的社群聚落所以呢，强调呢，它的建筑类型跟周围的文化景观常常有着不可分割的关系所以相关的保存希望能够透过这些特殊的一些准则保护它的地层营建结构跟不同的层次所以因此强调是这种类型的以文化景观来识别维护管理更为恰当当然你要看的是整个遗产的类型跟它所在环境的一些特质除了单体之外，那事实上你必须要了解它跟周边环境以及当时建构的一些特色所以比方说以金门的这个海岸的防御据点来看，它是沿着海岸去新建一个人工的一个碉堡那因应这个地形的高低差来新建形成一个防御海岸线的一些设施或者是像这样子的一个碉堡，它是沿着玄武岩的地形来新建高层以及低层的不同层次的防御的一些碉堡是利用地形以及人为的植栽以及人工的方式结合显然我们必须以整体性的文化景观的视角来进行保存，会更为恰当。好，那另外是我们也了解这个军事文化遗产的特性那我们可以谈到是它是有多层次的防御公式比方说可以看到在金门的海岸的防御系统有这个传统的科民养殖的科庄，以及近海的这个轨条站，就是反登陆桩，那甚至里面的雷区我们讲雷区的部分。以及自然的这个植物具有防御性的琼麻或者是龙舌兰，设置人工的绝壁，甚至后侧的反空降桩，所以它是一个多层次的防御的公式系统。那当然具有系统性的防御组织所以我们当然不能够以单一的这样一个构造来看待这个防御的一些思维好比方说以金门整个岛屿，它有密密麻麻的海岸的一些据点为了防范这个共军的登陆所以这是一个完全一个系统性的点到面状的防御的一个做法。好，所以因此我们大概提出两个概念从防御的公式来看，它是具有系统性的这种价值意义所以包含它的作战、指挥、训练、运补、文康，甚至后端的民生贸易，它都是防御的这些系统的一部分。所以它呈现是整个防御性的知识的技术那由个别的单元组成一个系统比方说金门的双武山坑道等一下会跟各位介绍。第二个是系列性的一些特质系列特质。它是由单点的一个据点构成面状的防御系统就如刚刚所做的海岸的防御的一些系统是大概这样子，它是一个系列性的各单点所组成的比方说这个我们的金门的双武山的坑道在一个高地上面，它是个地下的坑道。那黄色部分是一个地下坑道，在一个山头上面是个密集的这样一个等高线可以看得到好，它距离的这个位置的地表它在这个两个山头之间有一个道路在坑道就距离地表大概1.5公尺到2公尺之下经过这两区好，那它除了主坑道之外， 各位可以看到是绿色部分是壕沟，也就是这些绿色壕沟都是周围的火力据点来防御这整个山头，所以因此防御的系统是由各个单点所组成的整个一个防御所以不能够只看这个坑道，必须看到它的地表的银色以及周边的火力据点我想这个是整个防御系统很重要的一样一个概念。好，那所以过去在台湾基本上是一个冻结式保存为主，是为了观光，为了满足好奇，所以一次参访之后大概就很难做到下一步那所以未来我们应该要摒除固守原貌的方式过去不能够这个反映时代的状况，也很难以经营因为大家来一次就不会想再来了那所以因此要改变这样一个保存的思维。所以我们提出了就是军事遗产的转移跟再生的概念，也就是呢，军事遗产的应该要超脱所谓的精美与否的层次应该要适当的诠释跟再利用，透过合宜的设计包含融入当代的元素来发挥。那也希望能够呢，让军事遗产它的过去跟后续的再利用能够调和。好。那另外是呢，军事遗产是一个非典型的建筑它干预的方法也包括了转移转移也就是透过不同干预的强度来进行它的一个再利用。好，所以因此我们转移呢，就是适合现在及未来的所需要的一个介入的方法所以它的目的是希望能够维持遗产的真实性。那赋予军事遗产的一个新生命，那当然是透过一个具有创意设计的一个方式来介入，那也希望新跟旧能够融合那当然目的是能够达成遗产的完整性我想这个是主要的一个目的那是从新的观点来介入对遗产的保护好，那我们就举例像目前在马祖的梅石的原来的士兵的一个茶室就是官兵一个休闲的一个场所呢，在经过再利用之后呢，那部分的像防空洞是保存，那经介入新的一些设施，让整个空间环境更能为当代使用好，第一个案例是马祖的海防26据点。那透过新的一个设计方法来产生一个算是一个建筑的一个新的生命这是一个这个利用之后的一个示意图好，它原来是这样子，原来是一个海防的据点，很单纯的，那透过一个新的空间的手法的介入，那新跟旧结合在一起，那让新空间能够产生一个活动。让这个原本很小的一个海防据点能够纳入更多的活动以及符合当代使用的需求，所以因此它采用的是新旧的共存，有新的空间，当然地下的坑道也是完整保存透过这样子一个设计手法，让原来可能不太容易接近的军事的这些遗址跟防御工事能够让更为人所利用那更容易亲近我这讲是马祖在针对当代军事遗产的处理手法上提出一个新的一个思维好，所以因此我们针对防疫工事的这样一个状况，台湾所遇到一些情形跟它的特色来简单的跟各位做一个说明一个结语我们要知道防疫工事它的特色它是具有横向间的一种整体性的一个价值那整体价值应该大于每个单点的一个价值而且它是具有时代的累加性也就是说不同的时代有它不同的功能那我们很难以这个当代的眼光去看过去过去很难的这个用过去的一个空间来因应当代的需求，所以我们必须了解它具有一个累加性的一个特质具有历史的一个深度。另外是 它的价值不应该只看到单点啊，它是整个单点所串联起来的整个系统啊，具有这个场域的一个特质啊。另外是防御工事作为一种纪念物，作为一种非典型而且是非常复杂的构造体哦，它具有文献上以及有形以及无形的一个价值哦，不纯然是一个构造，它具有很多战争史、历史跟人类为了生存而建构的这些意义，所以因此它在景观构造物跟纪念物上面它是有相同不同的特质的一个面向，也因为这样子，它才能够看待它整体而紧密的体系哦。我想这个是过去台湾常常是以单点的保存忘了它整个防御工事是具有系统性的一个特色哦。所以因此台湾的军事文化遗产的保存我们认为它应该要理解它具有系统性的价值。它是系列性的一个构成这两种的一个特质而且它是跨界域、跨地理的这种研究跟保存，才能够反映它实质的一个情形那此外，这么多年来，台湾对于军事遗产的保存那基本上还常常会停留在过去的一些观念跟手法。那相关的基础的研究不管是军事史相关的战役史构造的一些研究其实研究还不够多未来应该持续的朝这个方向来做深度的研究才能够理解整个遗产它背后的意义跟未来使用保存上的一个比较合乎当代需求的一个方向。好，我想这个是跟各位介绍台湾目前的军事遗产现况跟目前所进行的一个情形那很高兴今天分享给大家认识台湾的军事遗产以上谢谢各位的聆听谢谢。
Thank you, Professor Zheng, and I will ask you afterwards also. And before we start the Paulina speech, I want to inform our audience in the Facebook room because our live stream is only in the Facebook. So if you have any, for the audience, if you have any questions, please type in the Facebook. Our staff will show the questions in the webinar, and then we will select the question to ask our speakers. So if you have any question, just please type in the Facebook. So now we have our third speech. Our third speech is by Ms. Paulina. The topic is fortification and the military heritage promote conservation from World Heritage perspective. Fortification as urban archaeology within historical sites, or historical cities. The site of her speech is located in Valparaiso, middle of Chile. Her site is, I think, Valparaiso Cultural Park, ex-public prison of Valparaiso Memory Site, part of the World Heritage Site, historical quarter of a seaport city of Valparaiso, inscribed in 2003. Paulina, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I am going to thank you for the invitation. So thank you very much. I'm very happy to be with all of you. And well, I'm going now to speak about Valparaiso and the importance of the fortification heritage as urban archaeology within historical cities. I'm going to talk about two testimony of construction system in Valparaiso, and also the management of fortification heritage in an archaeological site in inhabitant area. That is very important because in Valparaiso we have a lot of fortification, but in areas where the people live now. So that is very interesting about it. The fact that fortification heritage can be exhibited as urban archaeology enhances its heritage value, since with this work a new and exceptional stylistic language is introduced where the engineer and talent of its builder managed to leave this legacy through our history, introducing to the language of the time and type of military architecture that has remained for many years in historical cities. That's happened in Valparaiso. This research project and sub-question restoration of many fortifications inserted within living historical center declared a historical monument by the Council of National Monument in Chile. It's very important, and it should be noted that they are current part of the urban archaeological heritage of our cities. When one of these development are four aspects very important when we are speaking about urban archaeology in this city, in this historical city. One is to have an exhaustive historical investigation, first of all. The other, the transformation from its contraction to its restoration carry out. The other thing is the integration with the environment where it is located. And the other thing is very important for the people to diffusion for the understanding for the inhabitant of the historic center where these fortifications are located. Well, this is one of the testimony. This is the gunpowder house. Is very interesting. This is monument of Chile, and this is the park. Now is the park, and it was the prison here. The other case I'm going to talk about is the San Jose fortification, which is located here in the hill, on the top of the hill in Valparaiso, and this is the founded site of the heritage of Valparaiso. When the first of all, this is the gunpowder house, is a testimony of an urban archaeology site in an active urban environment, inserted in the current cultural center where Valparaiso prison was located, with functioned until the end of the 20th century. Today is a cultural center called Expression at Gunpowder House. Now is a monument of Chile, and all this site is monument also. This is where there are the prisons, and now all this site is the cultural center. It's a very, very interesting place, because also we have all the view of the heritage site of Valparaiso. So that hill is very important. One thing is the management of this archaeology site. I've done this important restoration. I've done with the study with my university. And first of all, we have the investigation. Then we have a project of restoration, but they didn't do it. They do another restoration that I think is not so well, but that's they do with other people, and I think that it's not so good. Well, and the other thing is the integration with all the environment where it is located, and also the foundation for the understanding of the population of this area. We saw here the gunpowder house, an exhibit form of fortification architecture, and it is a heritage valued is very exceptional. The language is introduced where the engineering and talent of its builder made live this legacy through our historic, introducing to the language of the time of military architecture that has remained for 400 years. This is the ex-prisoner gallery and also has restored. The other thing is important, the development of these four aspects and also the historical investigation. The gunpowder house located on the ground of the former Valparaiso prison is testimony of the construction system of building destined for this type of functions in America. In turn, it is part of the old fortification system that Valparaiso had several centuries ago. Valparaiso have many fortification, many system of fortification. Faced with the declaration of Valparaiso as a World Heritage Site, the recovery of these buildings contributed to enrichment the history of the port, since they are the legacy of a period within the Hispanic historic of Valparaiso. This is some example of the restoration. This also is some excavation here, and this is the site of inside of this very nice gunpowder. This is another picture and photography of the integration with the environment where it is located, the Dale Hill view towards the World Heritage Site also. So it's very interesting because here there's many people come here with their family and they live with this very important monument. Well, here we have the heritage site, also the former prisoner, the perimeter wall, that is very interesting also, the gunpowder house, the entrance of the prison and the prison where is. So that is very important for the diffusion for your understanding, former prisoner cultural center. Well, the other example that I'm going to talk about it is the San Jose Castle, and also it's the name of a museum called Lord Cochrane Museum. This is in the heritage site, and also is an historic monument and a colonial architecture. Here we can see this is a house, but is a colonial architecture, and is this aspect is stone foundation, adobe, wall beams, and wooden seasoned in Spanish steel roof. This in the investigation, the restoration, we are going to have it, and the integration with the environment and the diffusion for our understanding also. The historical investigation in Chile, the fortification were built from the 16th century until the 19th century, a strategic analysis of the military action carried out in Chile. And it's very interesting. Here is the defensive. Here is the site, the fortification, who is called San Jose, and we have others, but they're not now. We can see it because they disappear. The San Jose Castle was one of the most important defensive constructions of the city of Valparaiso, whose ruins are located in this hill, in the Cordillera Hill, and also is ordered with José de Garro, ordered to build on the main fort of Valparaiso, the castle, and it's called the Planchada of San Jose on the Cordillera Hills. The fortification was complete and was built with the object to defend the port from the attack of European corsairs that were devastating this region at the time, being inside within a network of forts that were built in the bay for this purpose. As time, the facility of Castillo San Jose deteriorated, but it was not until the earthquake of 1822 that its total destruction occurred, leaving the place in ruin. And we don't have many part of the ruins, but that's in this part is an elevator, and when this is the elevator is restored, there's many ruins of this site. It's very interesting. Another thing, this we can see the restoration of this not of the fortification, but yes, of the house who lived here. Lord Cochrane said that Lord Cochrane lived here. The old fortification is the house of the museum house of Lord Cochrane, and is the oldest and most symbolic building of this city. The building is protected by the historical conservation zone of the communal regulation plan and by the view section of the same. It also constitutes a national monument, and it's part of the typical zone in the Cordillera Hill, the historical area of Valparaiso nominated World Heritage Site. This is the San Jose Castle, and this is all that we, in this part, this found Valparaiso. And in this part that you can see it is the elevator called Cordillera, and when it was restored, we can have many ruins of this San Jose Castle. So that is this view is very beautiful of Valparaiso. This is the church, a very important church. And that's, I want to say that the integration with the environment where it is located, Cordillera Hill, view towards the World Heritage Site. This all is the World Heritage Site of Valparaiso. And for finish, that is the museum, and that is part of the ruin of this important fortification. So my presentation is about what we can do with the fortifications, is to integrate of the development of the historical city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paulina. Yeah, and so your presentation is very interesting, and I think we are moving now to the general discussion section now. And for general discussion session, we actually now we have 2 questions from our Facebook, and the others are also by myself. Since I think there are 2 questions already in the Facebook chat, I think I should fulfill our audience first. So that's the first question. There's first question I found. And I think it's better for Milagros. Yeah. So the question is, what are the challenges and the opportunities in preserving intangible military heritage? I think the audience is focusing on the intangible part, such as the military traditions, rituals, and skills. Are intangible military heritage also the inquiry for applied infantry registration?
I understand that the tangible aspect of the fortification as well as the intangible are both important as well. And normally an intangible heritage is directly related to a tangible site. So it's part of it. It's already part of the interpretation. It cannot be separated, it cannot be ignored because it's part of the history and it's also part of the significance of that site to the community. If the case of intangible ritual that does not take place in a specific military site, then it's still there's still ways to preserve that intangible, and it has a value. It has a social value to preserve it. So either way, for me, I will say definitely yes. It has value and it should be preserved based on the significance to the community. And through the inventory, it's a resource to do that. And also, ICOMOS also has a mechanism to deal with intangible heritage as well.
Yeah, so I think the tangible and intangible are both important, and intangible actually is sometimes a part of tangible and also need to protect is part of our social value. Yes. Okay, so our next question, I think is from the same audience, but this question I think is better for Professor Zeng. Professor Zeng, what is the role of archaeology in uncovering and preserving military heritage, especially in cases where the site has been buried or lost over time? Because I think the case you show in your presentation, some are uncovering during the construction. So please, I think the audience is very interesting about how to recover archaeology part in the preservation of a military heritage. Yes, Professor Zeng.
好的哈，刚才提到这种地下或考古的这样子的遗产的状况哈，那我必须讲在台湾哈，那目前针对这方面的作为是比较少的哈，当然刚才提到这个地下的一个部分哈，那我们大部分在台湾所留下的军事的东西都基本上都在近代哦，或者是20世纪，或者是部分是19世纪的这些遗产。那我们大概还没有遇到一个大规模的纯地下的一个处理的一个模式哈。那比较特殊的是像金门、马祖这些在地下这些坑道，在大概还难以用到所谓考古的方式来处理哈。那我们面临最大问题是它的构造保存很受到地理环境跟气候变迁的影响哦，那甚至是这个土地开发的一个问题哈。那我们最近又面临的在经过一些城区的原来的地下坑道。那你该要保存地上的建筑物还是地下坑道？这又涉及到了民众的权益跟公共的安全啊。这方面的议题，那目前还正在大家还在讨论跟研议该怎么处理啊。最大的一个问题是在于多数的近代这些军事的遗产，特别是地下坑道部分，那如果是经过的就是私人的土地，那基本上到目前为止，除非它有极高的保存的价值跟意义，否则我们很难以现在就保存，因为民众的权益我们必须要去顾及，所以相关刚才所提到的问题，那目前事实上大家还在研议思考中，我大概就先这样的回复，谢谢。
Okay, thank you, Mr. Zeng. I think the archaeology is some kind of method to understand the underground military heritage, but actually the problem of the the private lands is actually very important part and a very crucial issues in our cultural heritage protection, not only in the military site, but also in other archaeology site. Yeah, so now I have one question first for Polina. Yes. Polina, the case of Valparaiso is interesting, but actually there are two questions from me. First, in your presentation, the Gunpowder House site is now a cultural park within the urban area. How the function of the cultural park was planned in the past? I mean, during the planning, the process. Is there any discussion or mechanism during the planning process? Second, since the cultural park and the new building in the cultural park is more modern and active function in the site, is the function of the cultural park criticized by the local people or other people that the function and the building structures do not meet the identity of military heritage?
Thank you very much. Well, that is a very interesting question about it, because yes, the contractions of this gunpowder, first of all, is the gunpowder of all the fortification of Valparaiso is very important in this time. But the other thing is that this very interesting building is a place where the prison work inside, and there's make bread. There's many functions, so that is interesting, because we can talk about the heritage fortification, but in the time and a different period, there's a lot of activities, different activities, and now is a museum. Inside of this park, of this important park in Valparaiso. We have a project here of Niemeyer, but the people of Valparaiso said, no, we don't want it, a project of Niemeyer, because we wanted to protect our heritage. I think that is only in Valparaiso can say that they don't want a project of this important architect, Brazilian architect. So I think that these gunpowder have many history and many different use that is according to the period. That I can say.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, so now it's Milagros again. Yes, I think the inventory program is always the important part and the first part of understanding our heritage. Under the threat of climate change, we are facing a more and more crucial situation of heritage conservation. Yes, as the photo in the presentation, these military heritage sites are usually in a landscape field, as the Professor Zheng already introduced the guideline from ICOFORT. Here's my question. Besides the inventory, the climate change action is moving forward to the management and the mitigation issues, such like the protection of the shoreline stones as well. Is it possible to introduce some more possible management and mitigation issues in the scope of the military heritage under the climate change issues?
Yes, it is possible, and not only is possible, we encourage that to happen. Like I highlighted when I was making the presentation, the small list of indicators of impact of climate change, they're not exhaustive. That's a general idea that we extracted from the report of the future of our past. But we understand that the world is wide and there may be other indicators and other mitigation, not only climate change impact issues, but also other potential mitigations, solutions in other parts. So we definitely welcome and encourage if those to be shared with us through the inventory project, because it's for the benefit of all. Like I said, the idea of the project of the inventory is to create networks to support each other on the same issues of climate change that we may all have in different part of the world. So why are we going to reinvent the wheel? Where we can share solutions and we can share the same impacts and work together towards trying to mitigate them. So definitely I will say that that will be a great contribution to the project of the inventory to share those with us, with the project.
Thank you, Milagros. Yeah, so the indicator and the project is also increasing the possible indicator, and also welcome to share different mitigation methods in the world. I think that's the inventory project welcome. Yeah. To曾老师, yeah. So I think the interpreter need to interpret first. Yeah. Okay. 近年在军事遗产的文化资产保存，特别是在这些暴露在露天或者是十分显要的这些据点，那曾老师刚刚有介绍了转译的再利用，实际上也是涉及到修复、维护和再利用的议题。那转译这个做法往往会是有更多的新建设计，那也透过比较崭新的设计手法去融合原有建筑的特色，那也形成新的建筑和空间。不过我们也可以理解到，很多地方其实并不会采取转译的手法。那这些没有透过转译的呢，这些据点、坑道，它的保存和维护，也就会回到经常我们采取的原貌保存的方法。那这些原貌保存的物件，在实际的保存和修复上，还有怎么样的一个挑战？
好，谢谢哈。的确哈，在冷战时期，就是二次大战后的金门跟马祖，甚至台湾本岛里面，有非常多的这样子一个类型。好，那除了刚才提到比较属于大幅度的改造的方式来进行之外，我们还有大量的是以原貌保存的。那同样的，它也面临所谓的气候变迁跟构造损坏的问题。这部分我也必须说哈，在有限的资源之下哈，以目前来讲特别像金门马祖的状况，我们是经过目前有初步的算是一个盘点的计划，也就是如果具有高度的保存价值的，那会以现况的保存维护为主可能做一个静态的展览。那如果本身它是没有那么特别的一个高度的历史跟军事价值的，可能就会利用转译，就是大幅度的改造，让它可以呼应当代的需求使用避免这些遗落在角落或者说偏远地方这些防御工事呢就没办法利用。那第三类呢，就是它就是一般的构造，或者它已经损坏，比较不具有价值的，那可能它就会这个让它自然的颓毁回归到自然，因为数量过于庞大过去以金门来讲有10万的大军，那目前只剩下数千人，那大量的构造工事它是被放弃的。那政府部门不可能用大量资源去维护它这个是必须要去面临的一个事实那目前做法大概是这样子谢谢。
Okay, thank you very much. And that's my final question for Paulina. Yes. Paulina, I think the other side you introduced is the San Jose fortification, and I think it's maybe located in the World Heritage Site area. So can you introduce some possible methods or the mechanism? Since once the fortification in the World Heritage Site, and is there any protection special requirement under the World Heritage Site?
Thank you very much. Yes, this fortification is in the heritage site of Valparaiso, in the top, in the hill, and also the hill is part of the heritage site. And when it's built, this fortification, the water, the Ocean Pacific, is in the top, is in the part not in the top, but is near of this fortification. There are many fortifications in Valparaiso, but these fortifications are destroyed by the earthquake. In Valparaiso, we have a lot of earthquake, like you, like in China also. So this fortification now it's all the ruin, only the ruins, but is protected. Is protected by the Council Monument of Chile, and also is heritage. Is part of the heritage of the World Heritage Site of Valparaiso.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So it's a extension question to Miss Milagros. Yes, since I know you come to Taiwan several times and visit Kinmen, and also we facing some actually I think we facing some different idea as Professor Zheng already introduced. That's the adaptive reuse of this military heritage site. But when I see the World Heritage or other military heritage site in Japan or in other places, I found one interesting question is how is the idea about adaptive reuse of military site in the international society? Because sometimes we see most of the military site is in use like the preservation or use as part of a museum. But when we using the reinterpretation or the adaptive reuse of these military sites, sometimes we are facing a very some criticize from other people, like you are destroying the military site. So what's the idea in the military heritage site and the limitation or some guideline for the adaptive reuse or the more reinterpretation or retranslation of this military site?
Well, because of exactly that question, ICOFORT spent a large amount of time working on the guidelines of ICOMOS on fortifications and military heritage. It was a long time developing document, and that was exactly the purpose. So as a result, and to summarize, the contribution of those guidelines is to identify the 8 values that we were able to identify in this long period of working that are represented through fortifications, and they are unique. There's 8 values in there, and I'm not going to list them here because they're available in the website. But also, in addition to identifying 8 values that should be applied to fortifications and military heritage, we also the guidelines also indicate the methodology to approach the preservation and the protection and the conservation of that military heritage. And we'll use as a very important reference the Charter of Zimbabwe, which basically it's based on the Vitruvial principles of firmitas, vetustas, and utilitas, which basically it's the reuse, about what methodology we should be using on the reuse of fortifications and military heritage, although this also applies to heritage in general. So we should be referring to those. We invested a large amount of time in producing these guidelines that were very needed. Now we need to move into the next phase, into promoting those guidelines, because utilizing and referring to those guidelines is what's going to help us to understand or re-understand fortifications and military heritage. So that's where we are moving now, and we are getting a lot of sites that are applying and making reference and using the guidelines in their management. And the project of the inventory is a complementary project to the guidelines. I will say that to make a reference directly to the guidelines and how it is suggested to deal with the reuse of fortifications based on these principles that are suggested in the guidelines.
Yeah. So that's the starting how to start to follow in the guidelines and to see what we can do next. Yes. 曾老师，最后一个问题给你哈，也就是说，是那个请问一下哈，就是说像您在这个金门呢，其实处理的更多的会是冷战时期的遗产，那能不能再帮我们再稍微区隔一下，这冷战时期的遗产跟我们看到在其他地方更多是大概100多年前哈这种冷兵器时代的遗产，特别是在许多世界遗产案例当中的一个状况，它的差异，乃至于说保存上面的一个不同点，或者是在认定上面，也就是说在做文化资产的一个认定上面，经常碰到的一个问题会是什么？
好的哈，冷战时期的构造，我想，这近代的军事遗产啊，比较偏向于，比方说钢筋混凝土，或者说其他的一个构造。那比起刚才两位专家所介绍的，可能是16世纪、17世纪的遗产的构造形态，跟当时防御的一个形态是不一样的。那我想就如同在欧洲目前1次大战或2次大战所遗留这些德军或盟军的留下的这些构造，我们面临很大的问题是钢筋混凝土构造接下来的保存跟利用。哦，那我们也的确面临到很多的这些钢筋混凝土构造，或者是比较不是那么完整的建构，为了防御而做临时的构造，这些受到了没有在维护，或者是甚至气候变迁影响，它会损坏的非常快。我想全世界各国都面临的类似钢筋混凝土构造跟近代遗产保存的一些课题啊，所以反而比方说刚才Dr. Mori 所提到的这些津巴威的这些指南哈，那这个事情可能在不同的遗产的类型跟面临的一个威胁是不一样的，所以以台湾金门马祖而言，这类冷战时期的遗产，我们面临就是你没有足够资源做一个更深入研究，在保护的技法上面，它没有办法如大规模的城堡或者是16、17世纪的这样子的砖石构造来做保存哦，它是有面临这样极大的压力跟问题哦。我想可能我们要继续的去面对这样情形，共同来研商如何来针对必要的这些保存的一些原则跟指南来推动这样的工作啊，谢谢。
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all of three to join our webinar. Yes, do you have, is there any questions from our speakers to want to ask the other people?
Well, okay.
Yes,
Go ahead.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, okay. So I think our webinar, the time is closing, is almost closing, and I want to thank all our speakers. Our speakers have an interesting and impressive speech, and I think that some of the question from audience is also very deep, in-depth. The question is well answered. So let's thank all of three speakers and welcome our next webinar held by Annie. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It
Thank
was
you
a
very
pleasure.
much.
Thank
Yes,
you.
a pleasure
Thank you.
to be with all you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.